The Whispering Shadows, Part 2. For days after their terrifying escape from the Hollow, Lucy, Ben, and Sarah tried to return to normal. But the strange mark on Lucy's hand didn't fade. It seemed to darken with each passing day, twisting into something unrecognizable. At night, Lucy would hear the whispers again, faint at first, but growing louder as if the house was calling her back. One evening, after another restless night, Lucy met up with Ben and Sarah at their usual spot, the local diner. They hadn't spoken much about what happened, but the fear lingered between them like a shadow that wouldn't lift. "Have you heard anything strange?" Lucy asked, breaking the silence. Ben shook his head, but his eyes betrayed him. "No? Well, maybe. I've been hearing things at night, footsteps outside my window." Sarah looked pale, nervously stirring her coffee. "I've been having nightmares. The same one, over and over. I'm trapped in that house, and I can't get out. I feel like something is watching me." Lucy rolled up her sleeve, showing them the dark mark on her hand. "This isn't just in our heads. Something followed us. I think we need to go back." Ben and Sarah stared at her in disbelief. "Go back?" Ben asked, his voice incredulous. "Are you crazy? We barely made it out the first time." "I know, but it's not going to stop. Whatever is in that house, it's still with us. I can feel it," Lucy said, her voice trembling. Sarah shuddered. "I don't want to go back there." But Lucy was right. The three of them had been marked, and they knew deep down that they couldn't escape the pull of the Hollow. Whatever haunted that place wasn't finished with them. Reluctantly, they agreed to return, hoping to find some way to break the curse that had followed them. That night, they armed themselves with flashlights, salt, and iron, anything they thought might protect them, and set off toward the edge of town. The path through the woods was colder than before, as if the very air had grown bitter since their last visit. The Hollow loomed ahead, its crooked frame silhouetted against the moonlit sky. The windows were dark and empty, like eyes that had seen too much. As they approached, the whispers began again, soft at first, then louder with each step. The front door swung open slowly, as if the house had been waiting for them. Inside, nothing had changed. The decay, the thick air, the feeling of being watched, it all returned. But this time, they weren't alone. As soon as they crossed the threshold, the temperature plummeted, and the whispers surrounded them, coming from every corner of the house. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind them, sealing them in. The mark on Lucy's hand began to burn. She cried out in pain, clutching it as the dark lines seemed to spread up her arm. "I can feel it," she gasped. "It's inside me!" The shadows in the corners of the room shifted, coalescing into a figure, the same one they had seen before. But now it was clearer, its face twisted with malice, eyes burning with an unnatural light. "We need to get out!" Ben shouted, yanking at the door, but it wouldn't budge. The figure moved toward them, its whispers turning into a low, menacing growl. Sarah screamed as cold, invisible hands grabbed her, pulling her toward the shadows. Ben tried to reach her, but was thrown back by an unseen force. Lucy, barely able to stand from the pain, staggered toward the center of the room. "We have to stop it!" she cried, though she had no idea how. Desperate, she thrust her hand toward the shadowy figure. The mark on her skin flared, glowing with a strange light. For a brief moment the shadows recoiled, the figure hissing in pain. But it wasn't enough. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, as the figure advanced once more. The house itself seemed to be closing in, walls warping and twisting as if alive. "We're not going to make it!" Ben shouted, fear in his eyes. Just as the darkness threatened to engulf them, Lucy remembered the old stories. The whispers were voices of the lost, trapped by the house. Maybe the only way to stop it was to listen. "We have to hear them," she yelled over the noise. "They're trying to tell us something." Reluctantly, Ben and Sarah stopped struggling and focused on the whispers. They were chaotic at first, overlapping and confusing, but slowly a pattern emerged. One word stood out, repeated over and over. "Release. Us." Lucy gasped. "The house isn't just haunted. It's a prison. Those voices, they're trapped here, and it's using them." "But how do we free them?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. The mark on Lucy's hand pulsed again, the pain intensifying. She dropped to her knees, the light from the mark growing brighter. "I don't know, but I think I have to let it take me." Ben grabbed her arm. "No, you don't know what will happen. I don't have a choice," she said, tears in her eyes. It marked me. It's the only way." Before Ben or Sarah could stop her, Lucy stepped forward, her hand raised toward the figure. The whispers surged around her, the air thick with tension. She felt the cold grip of the shadows wrap around her, pulling her toward the figure. The mark on her hand glowed fiercely, and for a moment everything was still. Then, with a deafening roar, the figure shattered, its form dissolving into a swirl of darkness. The whispers grew louder, desperate, and then silence. The house was still. The air was clear. The door creaked open. Lucy lay on the floor, motionless. Ben and Sarah rushed to her side, shaking her, calling her name. After a long moment, her eyes fluttered open. "The voices," she whispered weakly. "They're free." But as Ben helped her to her feet, he noticed something. The mark was gone from her hand, but a faint shadow lingered in her eyes. The house had released its prisoners. But something had stayed behind.